That's
So,
right.
all right, we're recording here. So, welcome to the third episode of the Growing Pains podcast. I'm joined here today by my good friend, George Martinez Jr. George is an accomplished bodybuilder and Olympic weightlifting athlete. He is also one of the most knowledgeable and compassionate coaches that I know. Now, his love for his clients has led him to start a new business as the MindFlo Coach, which aims to hone in on your top goals, isolate the limiting beliefs that may be holding you back, and devise a plan of action to help you achieve all those goals. On top of all this, George is shredded. Thanks for coming in, George. I appreciate it.
What's up, Mark? I appreciate you having me.
So,
I really do.
On that topic of being shredded, I know your first love or your first foray, let's say, into strength training was through bodybuilding. What was your experience like that when you first started training, and what did you learn through bodybuilding?
Yeah, the very first when I very first started training, the main goal of training was really just to get stronger for football. I was in high school, so I wanted to. It was part of our training that during spring football we had to lift weights. So just kind of getting introduced into weightlifting, then I really had kind of fell in love with the fact of growing, trying to get stronger, trying to get faster, and then obviously seeing that my muscles started to develop. I was already a pretty short and thin guy, so being able to start seeing put on muscle and get a little bit bigger, that kind of boosted my confidence, made me feel good, and really kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of doing bodybuilding. Once I started training, and my dad did some bodybuilding and my uncle as well, so I'd always seen that my uncle had trophies and pictures, so it just seemed kind of like, okay, well, if I don't continue to play sports, which I didn't have any aspirations of college sports or anything like that, nor did I think I had the talent for it, it just kind of made sense for me to start working on bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's awesome having that initial role model there, because even just yesterday, my younger brother came home from a full season of forest firefighting, and his forearms are like the size of honey-baked hams. I'm not even kidding. I need to get him in here to show you. It's insane. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, damn, like I need to bulk up a little bit. So when you have those people in front of you, it's hard to describe how inspiring that is, especially if it's a father figure or an uncle or something like that. So yeah, I completely understand what you mean by that. So with bodybuilding, it's one of those things that I feel like it gets looked down on a lot. Like I'll see a lot of people posting things on Facebook or Instagram making fun of it, but are there any things that you learned through that style of training that you still carry with you today?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I see that a little bit too, of bodybuilding kind of being shamed. Maybe coming from the background that I'm currently in, from a weightlifting background or from even a CrossFit background, you kind of shame bodybuilding a little bit, but I would like to say, like, there's nothing to shame about bodybuilding. I think everybody who got their start in training started with some type of a bodybuilding concept, be it like, chest and back, wanting to do bench press, upper body, lower body splits of workouts, drop sets, things like that, just to grow muscle. I think everybody can, whether they want to honestly admit it or not, their origin of training came from that. But what I still carry to this day from bodybuilding was just, push past when you feel like you're done. Like, keep going, do more reps, do more than what you thought you could do. Because a big, not knowing it at the time, but a big way of, getting the muscles to grow is by, pushing past that fatigue, is how you're going to adapt to more weight, more size on the muscle. So, yeah, it's something it kind of ingrained that mentality in me that I had to work harder. I had to continue to work harder, like strive for more reps, more weight to be able to get my body to look the way I wanted it to look.
Mm. It does seem as if it's one of the best ways to start training, because when you're doing those higher rep sets and more sets, you're just getting more time under the bar and getting more experience in those movements. And I find that if people try and jump right into like a 5-3-1 or a different style of strength training, they lose out a lot of that time under the bar and that experience just moving weight. So from my experience, seeing people who have done bodybuilding before they do certain sports, I feel like they move better and their level of strength is much higher than people who just, let's say, jump into a CrossFit style program or something like that.
Yeah. And, just a sidebar with this conversation, it's like my original means of training was to try and get better for sports. I wanted to look better. That was kind of a byproduct of it. But the way that we were being trained was pretty much a bodybuilding, total body workout. Playing football is total body activity. But the training was just to get you stronger for the sport. It wasn't, and it wasn't like this style of training is so much better than this style of training, or do this or do that. It was all to just develop you as an athlete. Not saying that your football coach has the best strength and conditioning program that exercise science has to offer, but that was really it. And we did chest, we did back, we did lat pull downs, we did rows, we did curls, we did lunges. So all the things that you would do as a bodybuilder were the same things you would do as an athlete. It wasn't like until now that I feel that there's this separation. Like, oh, if you're an athlete, if you do bodybuilding, then you're not an athlete. And if you do athletics, well, then you're not a bodybuilder because you want to be athletic. To the degree that bodybuilding is now, like over 300 pounds at 6% body fat or less, yeah, that's not really going to be productive for an Olympic athlete or efficient. It's just to that magnitude. But the types of training, they're still training their ass off, in the gym. So, and that's why I feel like everybody in the last 20 years has gotten their roots from some type of bodybuilding training, which encompassed all,
Yeah, and what's interesting too is I feel like we were talking about shaming bodybuilding. The thing that people like to shame bodybuilding the most about is it's not functional, right?
Yeah.
They say that all the time, it's not functional. But when you think about it, nothing you really do in the weight room with a barbell or with dumbbells or anything like that, it's not really that functional because everything is structured so that you can place a bar perfectly on your back. Everything is even. And as soon as you get into a sport like, let's say, football or like you played or hockey or anything like that, your body is moving in 1,000 different ranges of motion all at once. So the stuff you do in the weight room, that's the only thing you're doing, you're not going to build a functional body. I have seen so many people, like CrossFitters especially, and bodybuilders especially, who look super stiff and they can't move. But I've also seen bodybuilders and CrossFitters who are athletes outside of the gym and they can move. So it's really not what you do in the gym that's functional. I feel as if it's the stuff that goes on outside, how you can move without a load on your back, how you can move in space and adjust to awkward positions.
Exactly. I think it's truly just a lack of information that people have. They're just really categorizing two different types of people, and then people saying, you know what, I'm going to take on that role. I'm not. They're not even. If I'm a bodybuilder, I'm not even arguing about functionality because really my main purpose, if I do bodybuilding for competition, is just to have an aesthetic body that has size. Obviously, size is important, and then definition. However that has to happen, that's the main driver. But like I said, for being an athlete, you can look at some athletes like sprinters or some NFL players nowadays that they look like, as far as your everyday person, they look like a bodybuilder. I mean, they're built. But if they got on stage to compete, maybe some of their proportions and their definition wouldn't be up to spec of what it is to be a competitive bodybuilder. Right. But by the way they look, they definitely have the aesthetic body of a bodybuilder. So it's like, to what degree do you want to take it? So, but as far as a functional body, and I know that you said that you're really adept in wanting to see people functioning and moving functionally, a functional body is like, look at a 10-year-old kid, or even younger, maybe like a 5-year-old or 4-year-old. Look at how they can move. There's not really a bunch of structural limitation. I mean, your average kid, they move pretty freely. It's just without that knowledge, whether you do CrossFit, bodybuilding, weightlifting, and play any kind of sport, without that kind of mindset, you're going to be limited. You can be limited at some point, depending on the flexibility necessary for what you do.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, just working with so many different people over the past 5 years and a bit longer than that, is you'll see people who come into the gym to try and improve the quality of their life, and they do, in terms of getting stronger and feeling better. But oftentimes when you use a barbell or dumbbells or that style of training, people enhance the limitations that they already have. So like you said, with the kids, they're free moving, they have no limitations. But when a 45-year-old guy who's been sitting at a desk for the last 20 years comes into the gym, that rounded back he has, oftentimes that gets worse. And it just blows my mind, because you think you're doing something to help this person, but oftentimes the biggest thing you can do to help someone in that position is to take a huge step back.
Absolutely.
And I think at this point, I'm not really sure what that huge step back is, but like if it took someone 20 years to get to a certain point, it's going to take a little while to get them to the point where they can safely put a barbell on their back. And I don't think people know that. Yeah,
I think that dealing with a lot of general population clients, obviously, that have worked have been working jobs where they're sitting at a desk the majority of their day, and then not having an active lifestyle, whether that be just normally going on walks or runs or doing activities, nor having an athletic background at all. So they never played any sports. They never did anything. Yeah, going into the gym and then just treating the body like it's do this part this day, do that part that day. Treat my body in parts. Yeah, that's where you start seeing like the problems get compounded. But it's a lack of information, man. It's a lack of true knowledge coming from the sources. So if you're looking at Instagram and looking at this guy that's promoting a supplement or something that's got 6% body fat for a photo shoot, and he's like jacked out of his mind, and if you're looking to him for fitness advice, and he's just coming from, hey, he has all those backgrounds, he's done all that, and he's like 25 years old, that's going to be different for that guy to follow his program than to say, hey, let me get with an educated trainer or someone that's going to tell me, yeah, you should probably take a couple steps back, meaning let's not worry about the weight so much, let's just see how you move. Because if you can move like an athlete, which means there is a lot of freedom in movement, there's, and we could go into the different tests of range of motion, but you do those tests of range of motion, then it's kind of like they see it for themselves. They're like, oh, I see where I didn't know, but I guess you're right. Because the biggest part is like injury. Injuries occur so much more if your body functionally can't take on heavier weights or take on high intensity, just a lot of things like that. That's where it's almost like better if you just start with calisthenics and just kind of like for sport or something, or even like I know your training had to dramatically change when you went through the Fire Academy, because you were just lifting heavy barbells all the time, squatting all the time, and then there were some tests that they made you do. So even like just a normal PT test of any kind, be it like just to get into the military. If you can't do those basic things, then you probably need to function at a capacity to do that, and then now we'll talk about doing all the fun stuff.
Yeah. Just go for a walk for half an hour a day for a month, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
You know, I think
if you
I honestly
scared about your knees hurting or gasping for air.
Yeah, because it would be crazy. There was a couple people when I was training at strength camp that were well over 300 pounds when they came in, and pretty much the extent of things we could do with them were just walking. Pretty much, I felt like saying to them, just don't come here and go for a walk every day. But they needed that accountability, so that's essentially what we do. We do like a glorified walk up and down the turf, doing some like leg lifts and things of that nature, and then we'd go out on the driveway and push an unloaded sled or walk an unloaded sled down and back for a certain amount of time, just trying to keep things interesting. But really, the first step for those people was, let's move for an extended period of time consistently throughout your day, and that can be applied to people who aren't 300 pounds. That can be just someone who hasn't moved in a long time. Like, you need to let your body know what's up before you go balls deep, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how we turned the conversation there, but yeah, it's like, straight up, every methodology of training is good. It's just what are you trying to apply it for?
Exactly. And that being...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I just had a question here. That being said, like, you've coached so many different people in different modalities, very different modalities. And do you feel like you change your coaching style based on the person, or do you kind of have some set in stone principles that carry out for that massive range of people?
Yeah, I definitely, when you say like training style, like my training style is relatively the same, but I don't like to coach people exactly the same. I use their individuality, like basically more on the intangible stuff, like what motivates them, what drives them, how don't they like being coached or spoken to, and then how do they like to be motivated, and that's kind of like how I may modulate the way I coach. But as far as like straight up principles, it's pretty much safety is always number one. Like my mindset is always to keep the athlete or the person safe, and as safe as possible, and then purely functionality. And when I say functionality is, if you can't get down on the ground and get back up without like all these crazy movements and maneuvers, like having to do all these things or grab onto something to get yourself back up, straight up, you'll see some people, they can't even do that. They never get on the floor, ever in their life. They never get down on the floor. Like, they don't have any. So if they can't do those things, then we work very basic principles of movement first. So functional movement first.
And one thing I wanted to pull out of that was you were talking a little bit about finding exactly what motivates someone. Is that something that you talk to them about, or is that something that you just sense with your coaching spidey sense?
Yeah, I sense it a lot of times. But then we'll talk about some things. So if it's like, to start, if I was assessing a client, there has to be a goal. Like, the best way for the coach and client dance to work is there's got to be a goal. Because if we don't have a goal, I mean, we could be taking this wherever. Like, it doesn't really, there is no end. There is no drive behind it. It's just like, I'm here because I'm supposed to. Well, that's not going to work for me, because I'm not here because I'm supposed to. I'm here because I want to. I'm here because I want to transform people's lives. So if you're just here because someone told you you had to do it, well, we need to find out really why you're here. So then once we get into that conversation and we see that someone wants to do greater things for their life, improve their quality of life, get more confidence, get stronger, have more, get more attention. That's a big thing. Like we are creatures of, community. Like to get that attention from somebody that you've been wanting, hey, you look good. That could change your whole fucking life. So, what's really driving the person? Then we set a goal, and then we work back from that goal. And then just seeing, like, how this person sees themselves or how they believe in themselves or what they say to themselves and how they adapt to stress. That's how I know how to push them. And just one, like, the phrase that I use a lot is the athlete or the client is the gas pedal if we're a car, and I'm the brake. So basically, when you want to throttle things up, so if you want to take that goal from losing 5 pounds and, stop smoking cigarettes to now I want to lose 30 pounds and do a Tough Mudder or even if it's like I want to start my own business or anything, when you want to step up the ante, now we can start having different conversations. I can start holding you a little bit more accountable. I can start being a little harder on you. Hey, you want to be the best. How do you think the best operate? So it's two different conversations. If it's like very low barrier, like very low hurdle to jump, it's like, okay, well, let's get there. How do we get there? Show up. Then step by step we get ahead. So I usually let them drive the car, like, because the ultimate goal is to let them drive, because I can't be the driver and operating the vehicle because it's their life. Their life cannot be dependent on whether I show up or not because I'm going to be here.
And that's the interesting thing too, is that when someone comes to you as a coach, oftentimes the motivation or the goal they give you is not the reason why they're there. They have in their head, I want to lose 20 pounds, but that's so surface level that it takes a little while as a coach to start digging a little bit deeper to your actual reasons why. And what I found is, unless you have that integral and that sensitive reason why you're doing something, you're going to lose your motivation really, really quickly. And I've seen it time and time again, because gaining, like for me, I could think, I want to gain 20 pounds of pure muscle. And in my head, that'd be like, heck yeah, that sounds awesome. But as soon as that gets hard, I'm like, do I really need to gain 20 pounds of pure muscle? Not really, So you need to find reasons to do the things that you want to do that go not just a little bit deeper than that, but way deeper than that. And I remember hearing someone say that what they did was they wrote out a mission statement for just to look at every single day, and it was something along the lines of building a legacy that would be beneficial to them, to their children, and their children's children, and just have that type of impact on the world. So when you have a goal that goes that deep of affecting your children and your children's children, that's something you can get up in the morning for, as opposed to just saying, I want to gain muscle or I want to gain strength.
Yeah, I want to be strong. Right. Yeah, that's not enough juice. And that's not enough juice for a coach to really carry you along the way. If we start out there and as the relationship improves, we can obviously work there. So, yeah, my number one way of really assessing that is through conversation, but seeing what the level of commitment is. What's the level of commitment?
Yeah. And that just reminds me of, you were talking a little bit about the best of the best and how they operate, and oftentimes, especially when you're watching the Olympics, they'll give you these huge backstories on people about where they came from, why they're doing what they're doing, and it seems pretty common that the people who are at the top of their game have a pretty good reason why they're doing what they're doing. And it just always makes me wonder if it's not the physical limitations that you have genetically that hold you back from reaching that, or if you haven't told yourself the right story to allow yourself to mentally take that leap to being the best of the best.
Yeah, it's all between the ears, and that's where, if you take like an Olympic athlete, for example, a lot of Olympic athletes start out in, let's take a sport like gymnastics, for example. Gymnastics, they start out very young. I have a friend that his daughter is 3 years old and she's in gymnastics. So you think about it then, when you were a child, you were very free in your mind, really. There wasn't a lot of sense of, this conversation of even who you are, really. You know who you are, your name, that's your mom and your dad and who these people are. But you don't really know so much about, like, I can't do this. You're at least going to give it a shot. You don't know, like, well, I don't have the genetics for it. There is no concept of those things. So once you've done something by repetition and repetition and repetition for so long, it becomes a habit. So, and how you know that that's true, just look at your parents. Look at, your mom and dad. Look at some of the things that they do, and you're like, holy crap. People are like, you walk just like your dad. And you're like, you don't think about, like, positioning and posturing yourself like your dad, but you were around it for so long and subject to it that it just became instinctual. So a big part of it is, at whatever age in life, if you're here and you want to be up here, how do you look at the people that are already here and start making your conversations with yourself at the same level that they make with themselves? Some of those instinctual things that they all just do. Like, they are all just going to eat what they're supposed to eat. They're all just going to override that thought of, shit, I don't want to do it. And they're going to do it anyways. They're going to have some regimen to whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. So as long as you could just start inputting those things in your day, then you're going to be able to, you'll be able to accomplish them. It's just making them second nature. Just like I don't have to try to look like my dad. It's my genetics. It's who I am. I don't have to try to be similar to him, my voice or any of those things. Same thing with you or your brother. It's just, how do you make some of these things that you do unconscious? And the reason I brought that up, Mark, was because, you take a person that's at a high level of Olympics, like that's from another country, say, and it's not that they didn't have a choice, really, what they wanted to do, because you automatically think that, like, oh, Chinese weightlifter kid, he doesn't have a choice. He's like, maybe he does, but, like, if he started at such a young age where you see him stretching and it hurts so bad, like, they're torturing them, but how does he tell himself why is he doing it? Like, what is his motivation? Obviously for his family after the fact, but he started out like anyone else, just through that repetition. He didn't know any better to not to do it or not. He just did it.
Yeah, and I think one thing that the advantage that people have who started at a young age is that they get to realize really quickly that they are imperfect in many ways, and not imperfect in the sense of morality or anything like that, but there are things they can work on and things they can control about themselves, because given the opportunity, you could go the complete other direction. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, you could do things that are really positive and change your life for the better, or you could go the other way. And I think once you realize that, and once you feel the thrill of moving in a positive direction, then you can start making those big changes. But a lot of times I think people just don't understand that they can make those changes and that they should.
For sure.
So, I have a question written down here.
Cool, man.
It's a very deep one. I hope you're ready.
Yes, I am.
Okay. How would you want people to remember you as a coach?
That is good. I'm going to think about it for a minute, not just give the, off the top of the head answer. Yeah, how I would want to be remembered as a coach is someone that created possibility of limitless possibilities. And that sounds a little cheesy, but never put a ceiling over anyone's head. Like, was never that coach that said, nope, you'll never be able to do it. was that person that actually encouraged the person, hey, you know, you never thought you could do this, and now look at what you're capable of. It's the person that brought the best out of people.
Yeah, and that's something I've experienced, even just conversations with you. Like, I have been coached by you a little bit. Like, you've given me technical tips and we've had good conversations, but even just in those conversations, I felt really motivated and positive towards my training. Just feeling that belief from someone else is really powerful. And someone else who I always felt that from was my other coach, Chris LaRue. He'd always just like set the bar so high for you, as in, yeah, I could see you snatching 125, clean and jerking 160, 165, and I'm like, bro, I can't even clean and jerk 125 right now. What are you talking about? But I think that's such a valuable asset for a coach to have, is just that unlimited positivity regarding the potential of someone else. And if you don't have that, I really don't think you're going to get great results with someone.
For sure.
And that actually does remind me of someone else too. This other guy I know, Jim, he would always, one time I was training with him and he goes, Mark, you need to realize something. You're not that good. Okay? He's like, even if you get really good, you're going to be maybe just slightly above average. So just realize that. And then he said, also realize nobody cares. So what he was meaning by that was, you're not that good. I think he was meaning just don't take it that seriously. Like, you don't need to get upset. You don't need to freak out. You're not setting world records. And even if you were, nobody really cares. So they don't care if you lift 90 kilos or 100 kilos. Just do what you're capable of doing. Set your sights within your physical limits, and you'll have a lot more fun. And that's something I think to myself occasionally. And even though it seems really negative when you first hear it, it actually has given me a more positive outlook on my training.
For sure. Yeah, everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
All start somewhere. And the strongest, if you say barbell sport, weightlifting, powerlifting, the strongest weightlifter or powerlifter, they all start with just the bar. So no matter what, they all start there. So no matter what direction the bar's going, everybody starts with just the bar.
Yeah.
So you got to start where you're at. You got to know where you're at, man. But yeah, I see that as a positive. we tend to take ourselves too seriously, but it really just creates more of a letdown. It just creates more of a letdown, because it's like, this goes directly, it's the direct correlate of this. So I tell people, well, say I told you, Mark, I'm going to show up to training or coaching, even this call, at 4 o'clock. And then it's, 4:15, and then I'm like, well, my dog ate my homework, and my wife, she was supposed to do this thing, and she forgot to, change the air filter, and so, but I'm here now. And it's like, the excuse plus being late equals you did it. Just like the same thing goes to, like, well, I said I wanted to be great, and I said I wanted to do all these great things. Well, it didn't happen for me the very first time I tried. Well, that doesn't mean that you still are supposed to be great. And that doesn't mean that you're not great. That just means you're just like everybody else. Even the best athletes have had failures in life. They've all had failures in life. And they still continue to have failures at times. And you just don't see them. They're not glamorized, nor are they put in the public eye, because that doesn't sell. So we're all in the same boat here. Like, we could be whatever we choose we want. It's just, are you willing to put in the effort and make the commitment and stick with it when life actually gets involved with it? It's all great. Like, I could snatch 300 kilos if every training day was like the day that I PR. Because I PR every day.
Yep.
No, it's the days that you go in there, you feel like crap. You got work to do. You got bills piling up. You got responsibilities you got to take care of. Your body hurts. You didn't sleep the night before. That's what separates the best athletes from people that, aren't that good.
Yeah, and I think it even goes beyond that too, because what do you do once you leave the gym?
Yeah.
Because that's what, 2 hours for a long training session?
Yep.
What do you do once you leave? Do you sit on your couch and watch TV, or are you preparing meals? Are you sleeping well? Are you recovering in terms of stretching and mobility and going for a walk maybe? I think that is what people struggle with the most when it comes to how am I going to get results from this program? And that's really where the biggest focus is right now, on what program are you following? How often are you squatting? When are you doing this? When are you doing that? Like, how many reps and sets? But really, that's such a small aspect of it. Because if you're not, let's just take one little thing. If you're not eating properly, that program, you can throw it out the window. It doesn't matter. Or if you're not sleeping properly, you can throw that program out the window. It doesn't matter, because so much more goes into it. And that's where that why you have comes into place. Because it's easy at a certain point to go in and train at the gym. Even when you're sore and tired, it's still pretty easy to go in. Like, it's hard, but it's not that hard. What's hard is to go home and force yourself to go to bed at a certain time, or force yourself to eat a certain type of food, or meal prep when you don't want to, because your body naturally just doesn't want to do it. Like, you're not this superhuman person who is just loves every aspect of it. So I just think what you do as a coach is really great, because you focus a lot on that other stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, without that stuff, as a coach, as a person that sees the things in the clients' lives that I have, without those things, it's just there's a quick turnaround. We're easily distracted. It's easy to just get change of direction, because there's so many other things that we could be pursuing for that pleasure or that satisfaction that we're looking for. But what I like about when I started training and started playing sports was, it was like I never really liked the pain of it, but it was really clear that was the bridge to success. That pain, that discomfort, that, doing things that other people wouldn't do so you could have what other people don't have. That was really clear from my mentors and my coaches early on, that this is the bridge to get there. Not having all the equipment, not having all the supplements, not having all the, the gadgets and the applications and programs and all that stuff. That stuff is helpful, beneficial, and necessary. But without the association to what it really takes to get there, if a person can't do that and really determine the fact that I have to go through this and I have to want to go through this so that I can get to where I want to go. Like, it's like, this is part of it. It's not like, oh, okay, well, once I get like Michael Phelps, then I'll really like to train. Then I'll really like to spend all my days in a pool and eating the way I have to eat and recover. Then I'll like it once I get to his level.
Yeah, because we're inundated with media that shows us, let's say, football players training hard in the off season, and they have a chef cooking for them, and they're doing these badass looking drills. And in my head, I'm like, dang, I could do that. I could just train all day, and have someone feed me, and I could do all that. Why am I not in the NFL? Looking past the fact that I'm 5'10" and run the 40 in about 5.7 seconds, that's not how you start.
Yeah.
So when you see, let's say, especially CrossFit athletes, when they're training all day and everything is so regimented in their lives, there's a process that you have to go through to get there, and for everyone it's different. And I think that if you look to a certain person's situation and think that's where I should be, you miss the lesson that's right in front of your face, which is you're where you should be right now to learn a specific thing and then eventually move on to something better if you learn that lesson and if you can implement something in your life. But I think we just get tricked by thinking that hard work means, I don't know, pushing a sled or training in the gym. It's hard work is having a conversation with someone you don't want to have a conversation. Hard work is talking to your significant other about something that is really stressing you out and causing tension. Hard work is so much more than bench pressing, and
that's it.
That gets over glorified so much now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, because you see the people, like we see our idols, the people that are at the top of their industry or field or sport, and you see them and you automatically think that being the way that they are at that point is to have what they have. But that's not why they have what they have, nor is it the reason why they are the way they are. There's a piece of themselves that's still the same, but they are not the same person. Just like, you could look at your body when you started. I've seen your before and afters. Before you start, like when you very first went to strength camp, then after you started training and lifting and getting your nutrition, like really putting all your effort into training and how you gained all that muscle, like you were not the same person. You look like Mark, you look like the same guy, but you're not the same guy. Yeah, by definition you are, but all the things that you went through changed you mentally, physically. They changed everything about you. And so that's what people don't understand. Like you have a whole new perspective on certain things that you would never have had you gone through it. So that's what I know that I want to bring to training with my clients, especially people that have big hopes and dreams. Like I want everybody to have the biggest possible dream for themselves that they could possibly have. Because that means if you can think it in your mind, literally, you have what it takes within you to do it. That's why with the information at our fingertips right now, I can ask anybody anything about fitness, and they could tell me anything that I believe I already know because I've already done it. They could tell me and never have done it before. Like they could say, yeah, I got this article, this program, this journal, and this journal that says this is how it's supposed to be done. But what says I know more than them is the fact that I've done it. Not the fact that I could tell you all about it. That's why if someone tells me inside of them that they believe they can be the next person to break the 1 mile time, I'm going to say, well, you believe you can. Well, there might be that inside of you. But let me tell you, if you have never run a mile before and never run it full speed, get ready. You're about to learn a lot about yourself. It's not saying you're stuck here for life. It's just saying if you thought that guy running that 4-minute mile is like smiling and he's just loving every second of it, like he's just in this euphoric Zen state, you better be mistaken. He was dying his whole career to get to that point. But going through the hard stuff is when you get into that flow state where it's like, oh my God, I don't even feel my body right now. It's hurting, but I'm actually able to control it. And that's what we live for. Moments where we can control that fear, where we can control that pain, and we reinterpret what that pain means. So that's why I said I hope everybody has the biggest dream for themselves, because they are the only one who knows how to solve that problem. They're the only one that knows the formula to solve it. Not me. I could give you some hints, but
But what do you know?
Yeah, I don't know shit. I don't know what you need to do to get it. I could give you some help, and I could bring it out of you. Because you know that the top 10% of every sport, on paper, they're all the same. They are all the same. Same stats, same everything. And it's like the craziest thing. Like you look at the sports like MLB and NBA and NFL with drafts, that it's like you hear so many stories of guys getting picked in the first round, and then they end up, their career's over in a year or two. The guys that get picked in the last round end up becoming your stars. And so it's like, why does that it doesn't always happen that way, but why does that happen then if you're in the top and these people are in the bottom? Because it's like once you push through this barrier of like now you're in this elite class, the only thing that makes this guy different from you is not the size of his muscles, not the speed of his 40, not any of those things, but how you're equipped between your ears.
Yeah.
Like how are you equipped?
And how willing you are to mold yourself and to evolve to fit your new environment. And that's something that Julie and I are always talking about, because she creates a lot of content, and she's consuming a lot of content too from other entrepreneurs and other business people in the fitness and business industry. And she's always wondering, like, what should my niche be? Should it be weight loss? Should it be like hormones? Or should it, I don't know what else? But she's always trying to find a niche, but we always come back to the same point of just keep creating and keep letting out what's inside of you, and eventually that niche will come. And the more you are willing to put yourself out there and evolve and change, the more you're going to learn about yourself, and the more you're going to be able to help specific people. And I think that applies directly to like what you were saying about the NFL and people reaching that new stratosphere. All of a sudden you have to change. You have this perception of who you are, and now someone's saying, we don't need you to play quarterback anymore. We need you to be a wide receiver. Or, oh, you played defensive line. Guess what? You're an offensive guard or an offensive tackle now. And how can you change your perception of yourself and be open to making that evolution? And a lot of people aren't able to do that. It's difficult to change.
It is. That's good, and that comes with good and bad habits. And so it's like that's where the majority of this work is done. But if you do the work, you get that sense of fulfillment, man, that you do the work of improving yourself, evolving yourself and growing as a person, at the same time that you're pursuing all these things. That's what's going to separate you, because it instills a level of belief in yourself. It gives you a level of comfortability in uncomfortable situations, and it gives you satisfaction of just being uncertain about what the outcome could be. So
yeah, and that's the thing too, because I could have got stuck on, when I started this podcast, I could have got stuck on like, how do you get really good at doing podcasts? What's the best way to film a podcast? Like, what mic should I use? How to speak more effectively? And learning about all those things is great, but really the best thing you can do is just start doing them.
Yeah.
And that's something that I often catch myself in the trap of, because I wanted to recently start training for a Tough Mudder, and I spent like 2 weeks just trying to find a training program, and Julie's like, why don't you just go run? Like, you're not even running. Why don't you just go for a run? And I'm like,
dude, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious, man, because on the point that you're on, and this is where the juice is right here, is I was looking at like a famous YouTube guy. I don't even want to say his name.
Mark Novak.
Yeah, Mark Novak. And then I go back and look way down on the beginning of the content, like when it first started, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, of content. I look at it, I'm like, it looks like it's got dust on it. You know what I mean? Like, the way it looks, the way it's shot, the way the person looked, I'm like, oh my God, like, who would even want to watch that? Like, had a couple thousand views, for someone that has hundreds of thousands of followers. And it's like, because, dude, nobody cares about that. No one cares. It's about the transformation that this person went through to get to the person that's like, I want that right now. I want what you're giving me right now. That's the millions of views. So it's not so much about, is the content relevant? What we're talking about right now is extremely relevant to a lot of people and to specific people. But it has nothing to do with those people. It has everything to do with who are we becoming to be able to bring that value to a point for people. Like, where it's so sharp that it is direct, like that niche that people talk about. Like, we are so clear on what it is that we do for people, that it is that niche. It's not like, oh, I picked the niche and then I start talking about it. Only if it was that simple.
You become the niche, essentially.
You do. You make your path. Like I said, we go back 4 years ago, this guy's a couple thousand views, and now his videos get millions, but he's talking about, how to be confident with girls, and now he's a business coach. Whoa, how did that happen? Because he used that as a way to get whatever. And I don't know the strategy behind it. I don't want to make something up out of thin air, but it's just saying, like, the people that are discovering this information now don't care about whether he was talking about picking up girls or not. Right. What they care now is, well, how'd you become so successful? Because he was making impact,
Exactly, and people see that end product, and we see such a good end product all the time now. Everyone is making really high quality videos. People are putting on really good seminars, and they're polished speakers. And if you are a person with good taste, then you're going to see that and then see what you're creating, and there's going to be a gap there. And there's an amazing video you can find online called The Gap. I think it's just called The Gap, but it's talking about that gap that you can recognize between people are doing what you want to do at a really high level and where you're at right now. And the only way to bridge that gap, which you see, is to produce, is to be creative, is to put your essence out into the world. And if you're not willing to see that gap and look past it and say, screw it, and just produce content until you reach that shining example that you saw at the beginning, you're never going to get there. And the fact that you do notice that gap is essential too, because in the video it says you have good taste. If you have good taste, you'll be able to tell that your first drafts or your first attempts at something aren't going to be that good. And you have to be willing to accept that and see you're not perfect at what you're doing, but be willing to continue to try anyways. And that willingness to try is perfection as far as I'm concerned.
Bro, you said it. That's it. You go through it. If I was to name 2 words, it's consistency and repetition. You are consistent and use repetition, you will be successful. It is inevitable. If you could just be consistent and be like relentlessly always doing it, it's only like by nature proven to go this way.
Right.
And it goes in the bag, but yeah.
Oh, and on top of that, you have to realize that success isn't necessarily going to be what you think it's going to be. You could be successful with repetition and consistency, but it could be way over here when you thought you were going to be way over here. So I think you have to have some type of flexibility in how you view success or where you're going to end up. Because I think a lot of people get really rigid and think that if they don't get this one thing, that they were a failure. When really, if they just look over here and realize that they're 10, 100 steps ahead of where they used to be, they're still successful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you have to shut that vision of like someday you're going to be like, I did it. No, you're not. You will never feel that way. Because then why is the person with 1 million followers on YouTube and obviously has a financial freedom maybe that they created through a product or service that they offer, why is it that they said, oh, I'm done? Why have they not quit? Shut their channel down? Because that was never the goal. The goal was just to put content, make an impact, and just there became this like, I don't know, a lot of times people call their training therapy. Oh, this is my therapy. I show up here, this is my therapy. Oh, this, if you in a CrossFit space, this is my family. Oh, yeah, it's because you're around people doing the same thing, and now you're able to see in a very small scale, just going in there, lifting up a weight, going through, you're able to see the metaphor on life in just 1 hour. Oh, I didn't want to come. The weight was heavy. Oh, I couldn't. But this person next to me told me I could. I said, no, I can't. I was mad because my boss was pissed off that I was late. But then I did it anyways. Oh, my God, I overcame all this stuff. And you were able to witness life in an hour. And that's why you keep coming back. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with the fact that you want to make it to the games or any of that stuff. So once people can wipe that out of their mind, like, it's not about, you got to have a goal, but it's not about that. It's about how do you consistently find that strength inside to keep fucking going when it doesn't look like on the outside like you've made it yet. But you're never going to make it. It's a journey. Why does Elliot Holt still put out content? Why? For all intent and purposes, he's the pioneer. He doesn't need to anymore. But it was never about having 1 million subscribers. It was never about being an international, guru or anything, or like a public speaker or public figure. It was always about this dance that you get in with what you're doing, and you just get better and better and better at it, and then it just seems automatic. Your life seems empty without it. Like, think about when we were preparing for meets, and like, you're so regimented, you got your program, where's it at? Okay, did I check this off the list? Did I do this? Did I do that? And then the week of comes, and then you're like, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that, and then, it's the hardest part of your training. You didn't hit your PRs, but you tried your best, so now you're just waiting, you're nervous as fuck. It finally comes up, you get all out there, and now it's like, holy shit, now I'm here. It goes by like a second, and then it's all over. You go have your fucking pizza dinner or whatever, and now you're like, now what? Now what? Now what do? I have no fucking purpose. Yeah. There is no little program to check off the next day, and then your coach probably says, now take a week off, you're good. What do you mean take a week off? So take a week off, you feel like all mopey and sad. Why? Yeah. Because it was never about accomplishing the goal of the meet. It was always about just finding that like rhythm in what you're doing, just that clearing through the clutter. It's like it gave you something that was yours. Like, I have to do this. This is what I have to do. And so it's finding that. If we could bottle that up, make a pill of it, and serve it to people, everybody would have a million or 500,000 subscribers of their own for their own thing. If you could just bottle that up. It's just so many people get started, then you stop. You get started. It's like, could you imagine if builders around town were doing that shit with projects? Oh, let me get it started. They lay the foundation. They put a couple bricks up. They're like, I didn't want to build a church. Then they move on to another side. Oh, no, now this is it. Then they start building a stadium. It's a quarter of the way done. Oh, no, the stadiums aren't my thing either. All you're going to see is a bunch of half-done projects all over the place.
Yeah.
It's just getting that momentum, man.
Yeah, and trying to continue it, too. That reminded me of an interview I heard with Dominick Cruz, who is a mixed martial artist, and he had, I think, 3 knee surgeries, and he said when training got taken away from him, he didn't know what to do. He was trapped in his head because he realized he was using that as his form of meditation or his form of escaping from all the negativity and the negative thoughts he had in his head. So when he lost that, he said he felt like he lost a part of himself. And I think that's something important for people to realize, is that what you were doing doesn't really matter what that thing is, as long as you aren't so attached to that if it gets taken away from you, that you're done, you're dead. You don't want to be so attached to your CrossFit or to your bodybuilding or to your functional training, whatever that means, without making sure that as a person, at the most basic level, you're okay with who you are, and that you're going to be doing your best every day to make other people's lives amazing, even if that means that you're stuck in a wheelchair and you can't train another day in your life. So I don't know, I think that was just a really a powerful interview I heard, and it was with Joe Rogan, actually, so you can find that pretty easily, but he talks a lot about exactly what you're saying. So that was a cool one. But I loved that rant you went on about weightlifting, because that, as you were saying it, I was like, oh, he's talking about me, because that's exactly how I felt in the past. Of as soon as it's done, you're like, can I do it again? Because that was pretty fun, but I trained a long time for this, and I got about 10 seconds on stage to show my stuff, and then you have to take a week off. So that is hilarious, and it does bring us back to that really integral point of, it's not about your goals, it's about why you are doing what you're doing. So yes, set superficial goals for yourself, like compete in a weightlifting meet, or gain a certain amount of weight, or run a marathon, but realize that what you're going to get out of those is not the goal itself. It's going to be who you become in that journey. Are you going to become more disciplined? Are you going to become a better communicator? Are you going to be able to be a little bit more grounded? Once you reach that goal, take a second and reflect back on those things, and that will be a greater reward than finishing a Tough Mudder and getting a beer and a participation medal. Because if that's all you're competing for, you're lost.
For sure. And just like you even said, you're like, I want to do a Tough Mudder. And like, how you're already looking for something to grab.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, what I had to realize is, it's not that I wanted to do a Tough Mudder and compete. I do like competing, but I also, it was at a time when my life was a little bit more abstract and nebulous, and I was trying to bring discipline back into my life that I lost for a little bit when I had to stop weightlifting, and when I left Fire Academy down in Texas, and all of a sudden my days were just wide open, and I didn't have that thing to discipline me anymore. So like, I wanted that discipline, and I didn't necessarily want to do a Tough Mudder, which was evidenced by the fact that I wasn't running. But I just had to realize, and I realized through doing this, that I just wanted that experience of being more disciplined. And I can attain that without having that external goal, but they sure do help.
They definitely help. It gives you a target to shoot for, but it definitely gives you something to work backwards from. And it's just making those goals realistic. That's it. Like, make them realistic and make them achievable in a way that, hey, you got something done. You did it. I think it's funny because I started a 30-day challenge for no caffeine at all. Like, no form of caffeine whatsoever. And I love coffee and all that stuff. So, and teas and, the occasional energy drink, Monster energy drink. So I was like, I think it's time, to bring that discipline back into my life in even areas that you don't think need discipline. Like, oh, I just drink coffee. I like it because I like it. That's why I do it. I like it. What are you trying to say? I got a problem? But
Yeah.
So I said 30 days, no coffee, no caffeine, and today's the 10th day, and I got a little sheet that has all the days listed out, and just checking them off one by one, and just the ability to do that, you don't know how many times in my day that I find myself looking forward to just checking off the next day, because I did it. Something so simple.
It feels good.
It feels good.
How do you feel with the no caffeine?
Oh, I feel great. I sleep better. I wake up easier. I don't have this thing that I'm like wanting, like coffee or that I have to do. So it's cool because it's freed up some space in my day, like where I don't have to think about it. It's cool because I don't need any energy. I just get the energy from the food that I eat, and I just drink more water. It's actually made me want to drink more water, be hydrated more, which was one of the reasons. And it's kind of dropped that like lower level anxiety that you experience.
Yeah, I did that exact same thing earlier this year, and that's exactly what I experienced. My sleep was better, and it was that weird low level anxiety or uneasiness you have throughout the day if you stop for a second and notice it, and that kind of just disappears.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So it's cool, man, and that's where, after this 30-day challenge, I'm going to do no dairy for 30 days. Not that I consume a ton of dairy right now, but, cheese and, any kind of milk product or like smoothie, take that out. Just try that and just, slowly putting those things together. And those are ways of seeing success. Like at this point, I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to not have the craving 10 days in than when I first started. So it goes the same. It's like all these simple little things that we know we should do. When you really get down to it, it's like this barrier in our head, like, that says, you know what, I'll do that. Today's not a good day to start tomorrow. Or today's not the right time because, but then once you start doing it, it's just good. It feels good.
Yeah, so that, I think we're going to have to end it here because
I got to wrap it up.
But just let me tell you, you've inspired me to do a Tough Mudder, compete in weightlifting again, and cut out coffee and dairy from my life. I'm going to start tomorrow, though. Not today, because I just had a cup of coffee. Because you got
to make the sheet, though, Mark. That's what it is.
With
you
the
have
calendar? I never do that. I'm honestly the worst when it comes to keeping track of things. Like, Chris, when he was coaching me, he'd be like, hey, you have your program with you? And I'd be like, I don't really remember where it is. It's there somewhere. Just tell me what to do because I forgot to bring it. And that would happen every week without fail at least once. So I'm going to try that. But like I said, I'm not addicted to coffee. I just like it. I do it because I like it.
I'll tell you, I was addicted. I was.
Yeah, I think I am too. But when I stopped, what I started to do was I would just drink tea. I drink caffeine-free tea. I don't know if that's cheating or not, but I noticed all those same things you did. So if anyone's out there looking for a little challenge to better themselves, no caffeine for 30 days is where it's at. But I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Great conversation, and we'll have to do it again soon.
All right, Mark.
Take care.